Joule, that is standing outside, is a vehicle that we will be using over the next couple of years to fulfill a solution and a dream that the Optimum Energy team have. I think we know, most of us are aware of the fact at the moment, because of things like the EV networks that are out there, that we have a problem, and there are many challenges that we are facing in this world today. We know that we have 6.5 billion people in the world today that are consuming probably a quarter Earth. So in other words, we are living 40% above our means. We know that this is not sustainable. We know that we are borrowing from the future to live in the present. And we do know that we need to do something about it. We definitely do. Global warming has, it's been a buzzword. It's been around for a very long time. But I think people are only now realizing how serious the situation is. I can remember very, very specifically a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, that's not a long time, when we were out there asking for our original funding, and we used to have to spend the first hour convincing people that there was such a thing as global warming. It is a very, very real threat that we are all facing. Maybe not in our lifetime, although there are definitely signs of it already, but certainly your children's children will bear the full brunt of global warming and all of what happens along with global warming, of course. The risk of overshooting our Earth's temperature by 2% is 50%. We know that, most certainly. And energy security is a very real threat. Once again, when we were speaking to prospective investors a couple of years ago, and oil was just over $60 a barrel, they were like, yeah, maybe we'll get to 80 over the next couple of years. It goes up to 130, 135, it's down to 118 yesterday, but it is a very, very real threat. Along with all of this, of course, comes a massive opportunity. That's what happens in this life. It's a cycle. And just some of my favorite quotes at the moment are from Craig Shields that says, renewable energy as a reaction to peak oil and climate change is probably the most important economic boon that will occur in our lifetime. I really do believe this. John Doerr says that renewables are nothing less than the reindustrialization of the whole planet. And my favorite, no power on earth can stop an idea whose time has come, and I think that actually applies to all of what we have to say today. And I think a new paradigm is needed. We don't only need to do things differently, we need to think differently. We need to think ahead. It's not just about living for the now. We do need to think about what's going to happen in the future. We need to use the present, definitely, to improve the future, and we know that nature doesn't negotiate, not at all. If we have a look at the current transport landscape, we know that there are 800 million vehicles in the world, and the really, really conservative forecasts say that will double by 2030. That's enormous. That really is enormous. We know that 50% of the world's population live in cities, and we know that 75% of city transport, regardless of public transport, people still want to use their car. A car is going to be around for a very long time. We know that these cars, of course, and even most of the city transport is overwhelmingly dependent on fossil fuels, and that it causes, we know CO2 emission causes a third is the cause of a third of the CO2 emissions in the world that comes out of the back of your car. We know that energy security concerns around the world are worsening, around oil specifically are worsening, and there's lots of price volatility, which obviously makes markets very, very insecure. And we need alternatives. Just a little more on the forecast by 2020, and we're a strange type of company. Although I spent a very long time at BMW, you shouldn't hold that against me. What we are doing now is it's a group of people that have done all kinds of things and that have come together and really do want to make a difference in this world, without being a bunny hugger, without appearing or trying to do something that for pretense only. We really do want to make a difference. And when we plan, when we strategize, when we fund, when we budget, it is all in line with that thinking. We don't conjure up numbers and say, we believe we can sell this many cars. We use conservative numbers. It's obviously a very large group of engineers, so everything that we're producing at the moment is very, very conservative. So we use Credit Suisse, we use Frost & Sullivan, we have a look at all of the Reuters indicators, and we draw we strategize in line with those numbers. So it's a very, very realistic number. So by 2020, 10 to 25% of the global car production will be electric vehicles. And if we're looking at the size of the car vehicle at the moment, which is 800 million, doubling that by 2030, nearly double that by 2030, we know that there is enormous room for growth. And I think the reason that we are quite comfortable with this is that obviously the ICE vehicles, the internal combustion engine OEMs out there are a very, very powerful force. But we do believe, and the predictions say, that a lot of electric vehicle production that will happen will not steal from the existing ICE competitors, but will be additional growth, which is actually quite clear. There are a lot of legislation and incentives all over the world. I can't see that now, but in the USA, Obama said that they will have 1 million plugins on the road by 2015. That is a very, very aggressive statement. The UK has had a $5,000 subsidy for a very, very long time, a £5,000 subsidy for a very long time. And I think if you, obviously most of us have been there, when you're there on holiday, it doesn't really make a big difference. But when you're traveling into the city on a daily basis, congestion charges and parking, etc., up in some stages uses up to 1/3 of what you earn each month. So the fact that an electric vehicle is free of those charges is an enormous incentive to buy a car, to buy an electric car. In Denmark, 180% tax on your normal ICE vehicles, 0% tax on electric vehicles. And I do believe that these incentives, all of the legislation that you see up on the screen at the moment is in line with the Kyoto protocols, the COP. We're just about to have COP17 in South Africa. Governments have got together and they've realized that there's a problem and that they need to do something about it. I believe firmly that when you're forced to do something, it's a grudge. It's a grudge purchase if you are forced to buy this car. So our position from the very beginning was we're going to make it so attractive and so wonderful that you will want to buy the car. So this is just an added bonus, all of these legislations. Then, of course, South Africa has done quite a bit. There's a new tax on carbon emission. The jury's out on that. They have invested in our company, in the development as well as the production of our company, or the production of Joule. And the IDC, the DST, Department of Science and Technology, have done a lot of work as far as battery and battery initiatives are concerned in this country. And then, of course, I actually won't go through it in detail, but the IPAP 2, in actual fact, specifically speaks about supporting and investing in electric cars, or the South African electric car. So the solution. We want to create a business and product that meets all of the sustainability goals. I have a fantastic video, but we won't have time. South Africans have done the most amazing things over the last 200 years. We really have. But what we're very good at is coming up with a wonderful idea, building one or two of them, and then we sell it off to the Germans. And more recently, we sell most of what we create in this country off to the Chinese. Our vision really is to make sure that we keep whatever we do in this country and to commercialize it. And to commercialize anything, to be sustainable, you obviously need a very good business case. So it's not just a dream to build a couple of electric cars, it's a dream to establish an industry in the country. So we need to create a product that is sustainable, that is attractive to the mass market. We could build a couple of high-level, very expensive sports cars, but that won't make the difference. That won't make the required difference that we are looking for. Needs to be affordable to the mainstream. Needs to make business sense now. It needs to show a healthy return, and obviously we want to make use of the legislation and incentives that I just had on the board. Electric cars have been around since the 18th century, and I think I don't know, I'm sure most of us as well have seen Who Killed the Electric Car, up and down. Most of it, I think, political reasons. Not I think, it's a well-known documented fact that for political reasons, electric cars have always had to take like a step back. But I think Toyota, with the introduction of the Prius, with the introduction of the RAV4s that they introduced in the late 90s, made enormous headways. And batteries have they've got lighter, they have got far more affordable. You can get them in different shapes and sizes. The quality is much better, and you can also pack a large amount of kilowatts into a very small space. So now more than ever, it's become a serious reality. I do think that if you have a look at the motor industry over the last 100 years, how they were doing things 100 years ago, 50 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, it is exactly the same thing. It is exactly the same thing. It took a long time for people to accept diesel technology in our normal suburban cars. But that was also a very slow introduction, not very aggressive. But I think there isn't an OEM at the moment out there. An OEM is an original equipment manufacturer, like a BMW or a Mercedes-Benz or a GM Ford. There isn't a single OEM out there at the moment that is not, if not considering, already has a car that is very far in the planning as far as getting it into production is concerned. An electric car, that is. Often, and in most cases, they're going to build electric cars on existing platforms, which means they're not optimized as Joule is. But I think it's going to be the biggest, by far, the biggest and fastest change that the car industry has ever seen. Okay, Optimal Energy's vision, and that's why I'm here. Obviously, there are lots of different things that we want to do, but what we want to do most of all is to establish and lead an industry in South Africa. Expand globally, we have to. The vehicle market in South Africa is really small, and to make a sustainable business, we have to export. So to create an industry here for electric cars, for all of the parts, for all of the batteries, all of the motors, etc., that you need to put into these cars, and then to expand globally. South Africa has been building cars for the Germans and the Japanese and and whatever for a very, very long time, but we've never actually produced our own. We've never had our own high volume OEM, which is what our vision is. Okay, we are green. This is what Optimal Energy's principles are. We are green. We believe that we need to make sure that transport becomes sustainable and that we continue in a way that it's not going to affect our earth. We definitely want to produce our car. We will produce our car in South Africa. The first plant will definitely be in South Africa. And it's about job creation. I mean, the idea is to create approximately, well, not quite, but just under 10,000 jobs. Jobs first-hand, skills, obviously, that we've never had in this country, development skills, design skills, and then obviously the second and third tier supplier skills as well. We are forward-thinking. We need to be profitable to make sure that we are sustainable, to make sure that the jobs we create are sustainable, and we need to export. It would be nice to think that we just, building cars for South Africa, but we do want to become a global player. Once you have an OEM, the countries that have huge motor manufacturing capabilities have very strong economies. It's a very, very powerful business tool. Our strategy is what we want to do is we want to develop the car in South Africa, industrialize it, produce it, we want to market it, we want to distribute it, and we have a very unique retail experience. And of course, what we want to do is not reinvent the wheel. What we want to do is use existing industries and, where possible, convert those into businesses where we can build specific components for electric cars. Obviously, all to reduce schedule. We want to do this as soon as possible and to reduce risk. Company founded in 2005. It feels like a long time ago, by 4 founder members. And we have a lot of differentiated skills within our company. We have the CEO, Kobus Meering, was responsible for the Roy Falk helicopter. Shouldn't hold that against him either. The whole BMW, fighter pilot thing is not our fault. Unfortunately, he never had me at that stage, so they never sold any of those Roy Falks. But this is a different story. And then we have VW and we have Mercedes-Benz. Niels Anderson, who is building and will run our plant, ran the Mercedes-Benz plant in East London for a very long time. So a very strong set of skills and a very diverse team. So it's not just about cars. We want to do cars differently. And lots of second and third tier suppliers as well. So we have 109 people at the moment, which we are going to double by the end of this year. And because we are going through a very, very strong development and industrialization phase now, nearly 60% of them are very highly qualified engineers. I think we tried to work out the other day that we have more engineers per square meter than any other company in Cape Town. I don't know if that's interesting. It's not really that interesting. We're working with world-class associates. We cannot do this alone. Obviously, we would love to do it alone, and true to the South African psyche, we try to do it alone for a long time. But the big motor companies all over the world use the likes of Ediada to do their testing and certification. They use the EDAGs to do the industrialization, to make sure to build 10 cars is easy. To build 50,000 cars a year is not easy. So you need to re-industrialize the entire car. Zagato, an Italian design house, we've made use of them as well. Okay. Those are and of course the universities. We work a lot with universities. We're developing things like our own motors, etc., our own battery management systems, which is very, very valuable IP at this stage in the world. And I think we are very, very lucky to have, you don't often hear this, that we actually have strong government support. We don't like them. They don't like us. We get on well. We know that we're good for each other. And they do support us. We were, I think, very, very lucky, where we had four South African men approach Minister Mangena 5 years ago, who was then the Minister of Science and Technology, and he bought into the project in a big way, and he has really, really helped us up until up to the point where we are today. Shareholders, as I say, the IDC, the East London IDZ, the Eastern Cape Development Corporation, and then the 4 founder members. Then, of course, our coup d'etat is the fact that we have Keith Holford, who is our designer, who designed Joule. And when you look at Joule outside, you might think, it's nice, but if we're going to production in a couple of years' time, perhaps it's going to be a little outdated. You must remember that this design is 5 years old already. So by the time we do go into production, it will have to have a serious refresh. But still, to this day, wherever we take this car, all over the world, people really love it. So Keith definitely knows what he's doing. And it was fate. Keith was born in Calvinia, which is not too far from here. But he lives in Coventry at the moment, and he was in South Africa buying a holiday property, and the lawyer that was helping him with the paperwork, the attorney that was helping him with the paperwork, was also at that stage our company lawyer. And he said to Kobus, our lawyer, said to Kobus that he really agrees with what we're doing, but this is a seriously ugly car, and he knows somebody. And Keith came on board. Keith saw it. He obviously loved the team and what we were doing. He is still truly a South African, and the rest is history. And Keith's attitude from the beginning was that it costs as much to build a beautiful car as it does to build an ugly car. So why build an ugly car? There's no reason whatsoever. I mean, the XJ220, these are iconic cars. They really are. Our marketing strategy is to have a globally competitive product. It's pointless if we just have a local product. We know that we need to introduce it into a very rapidly demanding and rapidly expanding market, and it's going to be difficult. We're not saying that it's going to be easy at all. And we're looking relatively, in today's terms, it's quite low volume. So 50,000 cars a year is what we plan to do. And we peak at about 75,000 cars in the middle of the 7-year life cycle. We What we did was we obviously wanted to be different, and we have a lot of motor experience within our company, and what we did right from the very beginning was take the entire customer experience into account. So we got lots of people together, we did lots of research locally and internationally about what people really hate about buying their cars. They hate the financing, they hate the fact that they don't have a car when it goes for a service, they hate going into industrial areas only during office hours, etc. And we came up with a unique retail model that addresses all of these points. So it will not just be about owning the car, but it will be about changing your lifestyle. You won't have a salesman, you won't be accosted by a salesman in an industrial type zone dealer setup. You will have a Joule broker or a Joule agent who will help you and guide you through the process as painlessly as possible. This car it has no emissions, and it has very few moving parts, which means that the service, maintenance, etc. on the car it's an excuse. We're going to have to find ways of actually getting people back into the store. The RAV4s that have been out there for the last couple of years are onto like 300,000-400,000 kilometers, and the only thing that they've ever had to replace were the batteries, for instance, nothing else. So there are lots of technologies in here okay, so anyway, I'm running out of time, so I have to hurry up. So the idea is to really put it into high traffic, very visible malls, where you, on your way to Woolworths at night, could pop in and start thinking about actually buying a Joule. Spec the Joule using all of the latest, and there is amazing stuff available. You don't have to go to a car park where 20 different cars are parked to be able to experience what the perfect car for you would be. All of it is electronic. Okay, and it will be the ultimate city car. It will be safe. It's an NCAP 5 rating. We have to do that. It's beautiful, and it will be even more beautiful when it goes to production. It is spacious, it's comfortable, it's green. Obviously, we want the car to be as recyclable as possible as well. It's convenient. It's incredibly convenient. You get into this car at work, you take it home, you put it in your garage, you plug it in next to your cell phone, if your cell phone gets plugged in the garage, and your cell phone will tell you exactly that it's charged, or that you forgot to charge it, or the fact that you only have 30-kilometer range left and you need to now go and plug it in. It's like an enormous, huge computer that can take just about anything from robot to robot, but we'll get there. And it's very practical. We know, we've done lots of research, what the average consumer needs is 90 kilometers a day. And that's that's right, 90 kilometers a day, and that serves about 80% of the population. That's the only range that they require per day. And when you know that it's that easy to plug it into your wall plug to be able to drive off in the morning, we're going to wonder why we didn't do this a very long time ago. 300-kilometer range on a UDDS cycle, 230, 240 on the European driving cycle, but we don't know yet. We know that those are the easiest ranges to get, but I think as batteries progress, the ranges will go up and up. It's very, very compact. It's not quite 2 meters wide. It is not quite 4 meters long, and it's because the batteries sit between the front and the rear wheels, okay, you have all the space in the world, so it's a very, very, very spacious 5-seater. And that is Joule in the flesh. You might have read in the last edition of the April Car magazine, there was quite an extensive article on the Joule, and very, very well received, which is obviously very exciting for us. Joule, the name coming from, this is obviously very interesting because everybody has an opinion on what the name of a car should be, and there's some seriously bad names out there at the moment. And I actually used a couple of agencies, and we just couldn't come up with the right name. Eventually, Joule, which is named after James Prescott Joule, the British physicist, so it all makes perfect sense. Joule is a unit of energy, and wherever we've gone in the world, people will say Joule or Joule or Joule, etc., excepting in Italy where they call it a Joule, which is, we might have to add another E or something on for the Italians, we're not sure. We have a lot of prototypes that we're testing at the moment. We have been for the last couple of years, and we have a Joule marketing fleet that we use for events like this, but cars that you get into and you drive. It's very different from dreaming about something, putting it on paper, and then actually saying, no, hang on a second, let me go and show you. Come down to my showroom, get into the car, let's go to lunch. It's a very, very different experience. We took Joule to Paris in 2008. And at that stage, there were maybe 2 or 3 serious electric cars, one of which was the Panina Farina, the Bellore, the blue car, which is in actual fact still only a concept car. So we have moved quite rapidly. And we were approached by 32 distributors. 30 distributors are people that buy cars and then sell them all over the world. And when we went to Geneva last year, it was 2 years and it was like a different world. There wasn't a single stand that didn't allude to or have something green on their stand. Greenwashing, we're calling it, but anyway. And they rated in Geneva our car as the best electric vehicle there. And we were in Hall 2, which was amazing. We were right opposite VW. And it was a couple of stairs. We were a couple of stairs away from the Jaguars and the big brands like the Tatas and the BMWs, etc. And this is for a car that we're not actually in production yet. So it was very exciting. Our market, just very quickly, we will have a look at pilot fleets initially over the next couple of years in the markets there, or in the cities specifically that we plan to go into. We take a fleet to Berlin, we take a fleet to London, we take a fleet to Milan, etc., and we test the market. On the one hand, it would be very nice to go into production tomorrow, but we do have time to make sure that when we do go into production, we're going to give our consumers the optimal product. The first plant will be in South Africa, in East London, and we will start producing cars only in 2015. UK will be the first export market, after which we will go to the Commonwealth and the EU. And eventually, for the second generation Joule, we will definitely we will definitely export to Asia. Lots of studies again. For electric cars, you don't look at countries as a whole. We actually target cities specifically. And we did lots of research, and actually lots of huge research houses have done research as to which are the most EV-friendly cities in the world. That is the list at the moment, and obviously based on volumes, we made a choice from there. As I've said before, South Africa, we've been doing this for a very long time. It's the high time that we did it for ourselves. And East London, our choice of site, because the Eastern Cape Development Corporation and East London IDZ have come on board and given us land and facilities, etc. So it's all part, and so they've invested in us as well. And the Eastern Cape is an area of our country that desperately needs economic development, economic growth, and some input and skills, of course, and job creation. Lots and lots of industry possibilities, such as electric motors, battery cell manufacturing, battery assembly and testing, electric compressors, battery handling, etc. So there are lots and lots of areas that are created by introducing an electric car into this world. I won't go through the IPAP because I've got no time left. Of course, this is our first model. We don't plan to stop at one model. We plan to produce this car for 7 years and then move on to the next generation Joule, but in the meantime also introduce a smaller type vehicle, a more affordable type vehicle, and perhaps a sexier sports car type vehicle. I won't go through our status. Started production in 2015. The plant is sized at the moment for 50,000 units. Obviously, we can build as many as we want, but we would have to build another plant. It will be in East London. Our sales peak is at 73,000 units. That's a production limit. In production for 7 years, which is an average life cycle of any car, or of any European car. The total investment requirement is 1.3 billion US dollars, which is in some cases about an eighth of what it has taken other companies to get to the point where we are. The projected return is 27, nearly 28%, which is very, very good. And the jobs that we have got on there, which are 7550, are actually allocated jobs. So we hope for it to be far more than that. And then investment commitment needed in 2011, which pretty much tells you what I will be doing for the rest of this year, trying to find money. Thank you.